The galaxy was a vast, cold expanse where countless species lived under the shadow of the Dominion. The Dominion had been in power for thousands of years. It was a coalition of ancient, powerful species, each with its own strengths, but united, under one rule. Their reach stretched across countless systems, and their military might was unmatched. No one dared to defy them until humanity arrived. At first, the Dominion didn't notice the humans. Earth was a small planet in a far corner of the galaxy, and the humans were just beginning to explore space. Their technology was primitive by galactic standards. They had ships that could barely travel faster than light, and weapons that were considered old-fashioned by those who had mastered advanced technologies. But it wasn't the humans' technology that worried the Dominion. It was their will to fight. For centuries, the Dominion ruled through fear. Any species that dared to resist was quickly crushed. Entire planets were enslaved, their people forced to work in the service of the Dominion. Some species were made to fight in endless wars, others to serve as laborers, and some were kept as pets, treated as little more than animals. The Dominion believed in their superiority, seeing themselves as the natural rulers of the galaxy. No one had ever dared challenge them. That was until humans began to explore the stars. It started with a single ship. The Stellar Voyager, a human exploration vessel, had ventured too far into Dominion-controlled space. It was a simple mission: chart the stars, explore new planets, and learn about the universe. But when the Stellar Voyager crossed the boundaries of Dominion territory, the ship was seized. Its crew, innocent scientists and explorers, were captured and thrown into a prison camp. Their crime was simple: they had entered the wrong space. The Dominion had seen this before. Species that didn't know their place. Species that thought they could just wander into the galaxy and explore freely. These species were always dealt with swiftly, but humanity was different. They didn't bow down. They didn't beg for mercy. And that was something the Dominion had never encountered before. After the capture of the Stellar Voyager, humanity didn't retreat. They didn't cower. They sent a message, a direct demand for the release of the crew, and an apology for the unwarranted capture. The Dominion, amused by this boldness, ignored the message. Humans, they thought, were nothing but ants, small and insignificant. What harm could a few humans do? But when the Dominion refused to comply, something happened that they hadn't anticipated. Humanity didn't forget. They didn't let it slide. Instead, Earth, for the first time in history, called upon every human to unite. The United Nations, now a unified global government, put out a call to every nation on Earth. It was time to fight. And fight they did. Soon after, Earth's best minds began working on a way to break the chains of the Dominion. They had no intention of sitting quietly as prisoners of the galaxy's ruling power, and while their technology was still far behind, the humans had something the Dominion had long forgotten: unity, purpose, and the will to stand up for themselves. In the months that followed, Earth's first response came in the form of a ship, the Phoenix. The Phoenix wasn't a massive warship. It was a small, stealthy vessel designed for hit-and-run tactics. With the help of the few stolen Dominion technologies they had managed to reverse engineer, humans began to strike back. The Phoenix took out Dominion patrols, struck at supply ships, and hit critical installations. It was a small beginning, but it was enough to show the Dominion that humanity wasn't going to be intimidated. The Dominion responded with swift force, sending a fleet to Earth to crush the rebellion before it could grow. The humans, however, were ready. Earth's first line of defense was not just in the ships they built, but in their minds. Humans were relentless. They didn't give up easily, and they didn't fear death. What the Dominion saw as a small insurrection was in fact the spark of something far greater. The first major battle between humanity and the Dominion took place in the asteroid belt between Earth and Mars. It was a skirmish, nothing more than a few human vessels against a much larger Dominion fleet. But it was enough to prove something. Humanity's ships, though outgunned and outnumbered, fought fiercely. They used tactics that the Dominion had never seen before: guerrilla warfare in space. The humans hid in the asteroid field, striking fast and hard before disappearing into the darkness. The Dominion, shocked by the humans' tactics, had underestimated their enemy. They thought the humans would break under pressure, but instead, they fought back with everything they had. Humanity had discovered something the Dominion had failed to account for: the strength of human determination. The Dominion's fleet was forced to retreat, and news of humanity's victory spread like wildfire. This was only the beginning. The humans had shown they could fight, that they were willing to stand up for themselves, and that they would not be intimidated by the Dominion. It wasn't just about technology, it was about the human spirit. As the humans continued to grow bolder, the Dominion's grip on the galaxy began to slip. No longer was it a one-sided war. The humans, though small in number, had proved that they could change the course of history. They could fight, and they would not stop until the galaxy was free of the Dominion's fear. The galaxy was about to change, and humanity was the one to change it. The victory in the asteroid belt was small, but it shook the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, the Dominion had been forced to retreat. A young, unknown species from the edge of the galaxy had stood up to them and survived. Many thought it was a lucky moment, something that would not happen again. But others began to wonder, what if the humans were different? Back on Earth, the people celebrated. Their ships were damaged, and lives were lost. But their spirits were stronger than ever. The message was clear: humanity would not be ruled by fear. The United Earth Council held a meeting in Geneva, deep underground in a secure war bunker. Every leader, scientist, and strategist was present. On the large screen at the front of the room, footage of the battle was playing. Human fighters flying between rocks, destroying Dominion cruisers one by one. The room was filled with quiet pride. Commander Rylus, a veteran pilot who led the attack, stood at the center. His voice was firm. "We didn't win because of better ships. We didn't win because of power. We won because we fought with our hearts. The Dominion thinks they've seen everything, but they've never seen us." The Council agreed. Humanity had to prepare for a full-scale war. It wouldn't be easy. The Dominion was ancient, rich, and had thousands of loyal worlds. Earth had only one planet and a few colonies. But they had something the Dominion didn't: hope. Soon, Earth's factories began to work day and night. Engineers upgraded old warships, scientists built new weapons using stolen Dominion tech, and soldiers trained in secret bases on the Moon and Mars. Even ordinary people joined the effort: programmers, miners, farmers. Everyone was ready to fight. But humanity wasn't alone anymore. On the distant planet of Tyros, another story was unfolding. Tyros was home to the Jakarn, a peaceful alien race that had lived under the Dominion's rule for over 500 years. Their cities were gray and quiet, their skies watched by Dominion drones. Generations had lived without freedom, without joy. The Jakarn were tired but too afraid to resist. That changed when a secret message arrived. It came from a small human probe, hidden in a supply ship. The message was short: "We fought back, and we won. You are not alone. Stand with us, Earth." It was the first message of resistance the Jakarn had ever received. At first, many were afraid. What if the Dominion found out? But others whispered about it at night, passing it from home to home. Stories of Earth's victory spread like wildfire. Some even painted the human symbol, a blue Earth with a rising flame, on their walls. It was dangerous, but it gave them courage. Soon, small groups of Jakarn began to secretly gather. They didn't have weapons, but they had knowledge. They knew Dominion patrol routes, weak points, and storage depots. They sent all the information back to Earth using encrypted signals. For the first time, the Jakarn felt like they had a chance. And they weren't the only ones. In the mining colonies of Zareth, the insect-like Zarniks began to rebel. On the watery world of Elisa, the amphibious Eliari sank Dominion ships in the deep oceans. Everywhere, oppressed species began to rise up, not with weapons, but with information, sabotage, and support. Humanity had lit a fire, but the Dominion had finally taken notice. At the Dominion's grand capital on Raxion Prime, the High Council gathered in their dark, towering palace. The room was massive, with pillars made of black stone and a glowing map of the galaxy in the center. High Lord Varnak, leader of the Dominion, slammed his clawed fist on the table. "How did this happen? They are a new species, primitive, weak." One of his generals replied, "They fight without fear. Their people believe in something we don't understand." Varnak narrowed his eyes. "Then we will teach them fear. Prepare the Purge fleet. Burn their world." The council agreed. Earth would be made an example. They would send a message to the entire galaxy. No one defies the Dominion. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the humans had already detected the coming fleet. Their long-range scanners picked up massive movements in space, hundreds of warships heading straight toward the solar system. The council called an emergency meeting. Some were afraid. Some wanted to hide. But Ambassador Lena West, a former diplomat turned war leader, stood up. "If they are coming, then let them come," she said. "Let the galaxy see who we are. We don't fight because we want power. We fight because no one should live in fear. And if we must fall, we will fall standing." Her words were broadcast across Earth and every human colony. The message was clear. Humanity would not run. The final preparations began. Defense grids around Earth powered up. Space stations armed their railguns. Every fighter pilot was ready. And deep in a hidden lab on Mars, scientists activated a secret weapon, Project Hammerlight, an experimental energy cannon that could pierce even Dominion armor. As the stars filled with enemy ships, Earth stood tall. This wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a fight for the soul of the galaxy. The Dominion fleet was closing in on Earth. It was a massive force made up of warships, destroyers, and dreadnoughts, giant, nearly indestructible vessels that had wiped out entire planets. There were over 200 ships in the fleet, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. The very sight of them was enough to make other species tremble in fear. But humanity had something the Dominion did not: unity. And most importantly, hope. On Earth, the skies were dark with the shadows of warships. Thousands of people watched from their cities as the fleet approached. It was the moment that would decide the fate of humanity and the galaxy. Would Earth fall like so many others before it? Or would the humans find a way to stand their ground? Ambassador Lena West stood on the observation deck of the Lunar Command Center, her eyes fixed on the stars. The coming battle would not be easy, but she knew there was no turning back. She could feel the weight of the moment on her shoulders. Earth had made its stand, and now there was no choice but to fight. "We're ready," said Commander Rylus, who stood next to her. His face was calm, but his hands were clenched. He had seen the power of the Dominion firsthand, and he knew the odds they were up against. But humanity was not afraid. Not anymore. "Ready as we'll ever be," Lena replied, her voice steady. "We've come too far to turn back now. We'll show them what humanity is capable of." The battle began without warning. The Dominion fleet unleashed its full fury on Earth's outer defenses. Energy beams cut through space, ripping apart satellites and space stations. Explosions rocked the sky, sending shockwaves through the atmosphere. Earth's defenses fought back with everything they had: railguns, laser turrets, and missile launchers. But it was clear that the Dominion was holding back nothing. The first wave of Dominion ships arrived above Earth's atmosphere. Massive, dreadnoughts dropped out of hyperspace, their weapons primed for destruction. But humanity was ready. From the surface, hundreds of human fighter ships launched into space, zipping through the sky with incredible speed. They were smaller, faster, and more maneuverable than the Dominion's massive warships. The human pilots had been trained for months in the deadliest combat scenarios, and they were determined to fight for their home. The fighters weaved between the Dominion ships, launching missiles and firing laser beams at any target they could find. The Dominion responded with brutal efficiency. Their ships fired back, knocking out entire squadrons of human fighters in a matter of seconds. But for every fighter that fell, Two more took its place. Humanity's resolve was like nothing the Dominion had ever encountered. They had underestimated the humans before, and now they were learning just how wrong they were. The battle raged on for hours, with both sides suffering heavy losses. The skies above Earth were filled with explosions and debris. The Dominion ships were powerful, but humanity had something they did not: determination. The humans fought like never before, knowing that the fate of their world hung in the balance. Lena West and Commander Rylus watched from the command center as the battle continued. Every minute more ships fell, but the humans were holding their ground. Earth's defenses were starting to take a toll on the Dominion fleet. One by one, the massive dreadnoughts began to retreat. The human fighters, though vastly outnumbered, had caused enough damage to force the Dominion ships to pull back. But it wasn't enough to end the fight. The Dominion was not the kind of enemy that would retreat easily. From the depths of their fleet, the true weapon was deployed: the Purifier. The Purifier was a colossal ship, bigger than any human vessel, and it carried the Dominion's most dangerous weapon: a planetary-level laser cannon capable of destroying entire cities in seconds. The Dominion had used it to wipe out entire worlds that had dared to resist, and now they were going to use it on Earth. The Purifier's weapon charged up, its energy filling the space around it. The very sight of it sent a wave of fear through the humans watching from below. This was the end, they thought. There was no way they could stop it. But then, a voice echoed through the command center. "The Hammerlight is ready," said General Ansel, the chief scientist behind Earth's experimental weapon. Lena turned to him. "Then let's make this count." The Hammerlight was Earth's secret weapon, a powerful energy cannon capable of piercing through the toughest of enemy shields. It had never been tested in battle before, but now was the time to see if it could stand up to the Dominion. With a single command, the Hammerlight's massive energy beam shot into the sky, tearing through the dark expanse of space. The beam slammed into the Purifier's shields, causing them to flicker and fade. For a moment, the ship was vulnerable. Commander Rylus gave the order. "All fighters, focus fire on the Purifier. Now." Hundreds of human fighters launched their final assault, sending everything they had toward the Purifier. Missiles, lasers, and energy blasts struck the massive ship, causing it to shake. The Purifier's defenses were strong, but they were weakening. The Dominion had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt and fight back. Then, with a final blast, the Purifier exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The shockwave spread outward, taking down several other Dominion ships with it. Earth's skies, once dark with the threat of war, were now filled with the debris of the fallen invaders. For the first time in history, the Dominion fleet had been defeated in open combat. As the dust settled, the humans watched in stunned silence. They had won. Against all odds, they had fought back and they had won. It was not the end of the war, but it was the beginning of a new era. The galaxy had just witnessed the power of humanity's spirit, its unwillingness to bow to fear. And now, the Dominion knew one thing for certain: humanity would no longer be controlled. The fight had only just begun. The victory over the Dominion fleet above Earth was only the beginning. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. For the first time in millennia, the mighty Dominion had been forced to retreat. Their ships, the symbols of their fearsome power, had fallen at the hands of a young species that had no right to challenge them. And yet humanity had done it. But the Dominion was far from finished. They were ancient, and their thirst for control ran deep. Earth's victory had sent a shockwave through the galaxy, but the true war was just beginning. On Earth, celebrations filled the streets. Families cheered, soldiers embraced, and even the children, who had grown up hearing stories of the Dominion's terror, looked up at the stars with new hope in their hearts. But Lena West, the leader who had helped guide humanity through the storm, knew the battle was far from over. The Dominion was coming for Earth again, and this time they would not underestimate humanity. In the days following their victory, the United Earth Council held a closed meeting. It was a room full of leaders, generals, and diplomats, but all eyes were on Lena as she stood before them. She had led humanity through the hardest challenge it had ever faced. But now the question was, what's next? The Dominion won't rest, Lena said, her voice firm. We've shaken them, yes, but they'll be back with more force. We need to prepare. We need to unite the galaxy's oppressed species and show the Dominion that it's not just Earth they have to fear. It's everyone. The Council was silent for a moment. The challenge was enormous. Humanity had no allies yet. The Dominion's empire stretched across the stars, and any rebellion was crushed before it could even begin. But Lena's words rang true. The galaxy was full of species who had suffered under the Dominion's rule for centuries, species who were just as tired of living in fear as humanity was. One by one, representatives from other races began to speak up. The Zarniks, a species of insect-like creatures, had long been forced to mine the planets for the Dominion's resources. They spoke of their suffering, of their families ripped apart, and how they had no future under the Dominion's rule. The Eliari, amphibians from the ocean world of Alyssa, described how their people were enslaved and used as tools for war. Every species in the room had a story of pain, of lost hope, and of fear. Lena's plan was clear. They would not fight this war alone. They would reach out to the oppressed species of the galaxy and form a new alliance, an alliance built on hope, freedom, and the belief that they could stand against the Dominion. The first step was to send a message to every corner of the galaxy. The humans had already established contact with the Jakarn, who had helped them during the battle above Earth. But now, they needed to do more. A call was sent out, an invitation to join the growing rebellion. The message spread through the stars like wildfire. The Dominion's reign of fear is over. The galaxy does not belong to them. Stand with us, fight with us, and together we will be free. The first to answer the call were the Jakarn, the peaceful race that had lived in fear for so long. They were the ones who had sent the first message to humanity, and now they stood ready to help liberate their homeworlds and others across the galaxy. Next came the Zarniks, who had suffered greatly under the Dominion's harsh mining operations. They were a proud, strong species, and their warrior-class fighters joined humanity's fleet, ready to strike at Dominion targets. The Eliari, who had been used as slaves for Dominion soldiers, also joined the cause. Their deep-sea technology, previously suppressed by the Dominion, became a valuable asset in space warfare. One by one, more species came forward, their voices growing stronger as the alliance took shape. But not everyone was convinced. There were those in the galaxy who feared that humanity's rise would lead to chaos. The Dominion had ruled with an iron fist for so long that many believed there was no alternative. They didn't believe in the hope that the rebellion offered. Some even argued that it was better to remain under the Dominion's control than risk everything in a war they could not win. Lena knew that convincing these species would be difficult. But she also knew that fear was the Dominion's greatest weapon, and humanity had already shown the galaxy that fear could be overcome. The first real test of the new alliance came when the Dominion responded. The Purge Fleet, the most powerful military force the Dominion had ever assembled, arrived at the outer edge of the galaxy. Their ships were massive, their weapons unmatched, and they were coming to crush the rebellion once and for all. But the alliance was ready. Across dozens of worlds, human, Jakarn, Zarnik, and Eliari forces gathered to defend their homes. The battle would take place in the heart of Dominion space, in a system called Trikron, where a strategic military base was located. Whoever controlled Trikron would control the region, and the rebellion knew that if they could hold this line, they would send a powerful message to the entire galaxy. The battle began as the Dominion fleet descended on Trikron. It was an overwhelming force. The first wave of Dominion ships, led by the terrifying dreadnoughts, unleashed hell on the defenders below. Waves of laser fire, missiles, and plasma bombs rained down on the surface. But the alliance did not falter. The Jakarn and Zarniks fought with fierce determination, while the humans coordinated their forces in space. Lena stood on the bridge of Earth's flagship, watching the battle unfold. The odds were still against them, but there was something different now. The Dominion fleet had underestimated them before, but this time they faced something far stronger than they realized. As the battle raged, The Alliance's fleet launched a counterattack. Zarnik warships, equipped with new weapons designed by human engineers, targeted the Dominion's dreadnoughts. Human fighters flew through the chaos, striking at the Dominion's weaker vessels. And from the depths of the oceanic world of Elissa, the Eliari launched devastating underwater attacks on the Dominion's ground forces, causing massive destruction. For the first time in centuries, the Dominion was losing. The battle for Trikron was not over, but the tide was turning. The Alliance was not just holding their ground, they were pushing back. And so, the rebellion continued to grow. The Dominion may have been the strongest power in the galaxy, but they were not invincible. And now the galaxy knew that humanity and their allies would stop at nothing to see freedom win. The battle for Trikron had been nothing short of a miracle. Against all odds, the Alliance had dealt the Dominion a crippling blow. The once unbeatable dreadnoughts, the fearsome symbol of the Dominion's might, had been reduced to burning wrecks, drifting through space like broken shells. The Alliance's victory sent ripples through the galaxy. Species that had lived in fear for centuries now believed something had changed. But the Dominion was not finished. Their retaliation was swift, ruthless, and unforgiving. In the aftermath of Trikron, Lena West stood in a dimly lit command room aboard Earth's flagship. Her eyes were fixed on the map of the galaxy spread before her. The Dominion's fleet had regrouped quickly, and their retaliation was now in motion. They had learned from their defeat, and they would stop at nothing to crush the rebellion. But this time it wasn't just Earth at risk. It was the entire galaxy. The Dominion had sent its next wave of destruction, a fleet more powerful than before. This time, they had dispatched their most elite commanders, the ones who had crushed entire civilizations. It was a clear message. The rebellion would be wiped out, no mercy given. Lena's fingers hovered over the communication panel. The war was about to enter a new, more dangerous phase. The Alliance had no choice but to strike first. "We need to hit them before they hit us," Lena said, turning to Commander Rylus, who stood at attention beside her. Rylus nodded. "We have a plan, but it's risky. If we miss, they'll be on top of us before we can regroup." "There's no other choice," Lena replied firmly. "Prepare the fleet. We need to end this now." The Alliance had spent days strategizing, and now the plan was ready. Earth's flagship, along with the Jakarn, Zarniks, and Eliari, would strike deep into Dominion-controlled space. The goal was to hit their command center, an enormous shipyard where the Dominion built its most powerful warships. If they could destroy this key facility, the Dominion's war machine would be severely crippled. But to reach the shipyard, the Alliance would have to navigate through a series of heavily fortified planets and strongholds. The mission was dangerous, and failure would mean the end of everything they had worked for. As the fleet set off, a quiet determination settled over the crew. They knew the stakes. This wasn't just a battle for survival, it was a battle for the future of the galaxy. The journey to the heart of Dominion space took them through asteroid fields, past ancient space stations, and into the heart of enemy territory. Each star they passed felt like it was watching them. The Dominion's eyes were everywhere. Their ships patrolled every corner, every moon, every orbit. But the Alliance pressed on, knowing that hesitation could mean their doom. Days turned into weeks, and the tension grew. The crew aboard the ships could feel it. Every mission briefing, every scout report only confirmed what they already knew. The Dominion was closing in on them. They were no longer the underdogs, they were the target. On the eve of their final approach to the Dominion shipyard, Lena stood at the front of the flagship, looking out at the swirling void of space. Commander Rylus joined her, his face set in a grim expression. "This is it," Rylus said quietly. "One way or another, we make our stand here." Lena took a deep breath. "We didn't come this far to lose. No matter what happens, we fight. This is for every species that has suffered under the Dominion, for Earth, for all of us." The battle began with the Alliance slipping past Dominion defenses under the cover of the dark side of a nearby moon. They struck fast, hitting the shipyard with precision. The Dominion was caught off guard. and the first wave of attacks tore through the shipyard's outer defenses. Massive explosions rocked the facility as the Alliance's fighters swarmed in, taking out turrets and power stations with surgical strikes. For a moment, it seemed like the mission might succeed. But the Dominion was quick to react. Their reinforcements arrived, and the battle turned into a vicious conflict. Waves of Dominion fighters flooded the space around the shipyard, engaging the Alliance in a brutal dogfight. The skies filled with fire, and the space around them became a chaotic storm of missiles and energy beams. "Hold the line," Lena's voice rang through the fleet's comms. "We need to get to the core before they reinforce too heavily. Push forward." Human and Jakarn fighters raced toward the heart of the shipyard, blasting through layers of defense shields and artillery. Zarnik warships used their advanced firepower to break through the Dominion's flagship's shields, while Eliari underwater drones disabled the shipyard's reactor core. The plan was working, but time was running out. As they neared the center of the facility, a Dominion dreadnought arrived on the scene, its massive form eclipsing the stars behind it. The flagship's weapons unleashed a torrent of firepower at the advancing fleet, knocking out smaller ships in seconds. "This is it," Commander Rylas shouted as he locked onto the dreadnought's weak point. Lena's heart raced as she watched the battle unfold. The Dominion ships' shields were weakening, but so were their own forces. One by one, Alliance ships fell as the dreadnought's cannon tore through their defenses. Yet the humans, Jakarn, Zarnix, and Eliari, held fast, knowing this was their best chance to strike a devastating blow. With a final push, the Alliance fleet focused all their firepower on the Dominion dreadnought, ripping apart its shields and blasting into its core. The ship's massive hull exploded in a fiery bloom of light, sending shockwaves through the space around them. The victory, however, was not without cost. The Alliance had lost many ships and brave warriors, but they had struck a major blow to the Dominion's war machine. The shipyard, the heart of Dominion production, was now in ruins, its vast resources scattered in the debris of the battle. As the smoke cleared, Lena took a moment to breathe. They had won, but the war was far from over. They had given the galaxy a chance to breathe again, but the Dominion's wrath would be swift. The galaxy now knew something that they had never believed before. Humanity could win, and that belief would light the way for the battles to come. The destruction of the Dominion's primary shipyard had shaken the galaxy to its core. What had once seemed like an unstoppable empire was now on the defensive. The victory at the shipyard wasn't just a blow to their war machine, it was a symbol of hope, a message to every species under the Dominion's cruel rule that they were not alone. As news of the victory spread across the galaxy, resistance groups from every corner of Dominion-controlled space began to rise. The spark that humanity had ignited had turned into a roaring flame of rebellion, one that the Dominion could no longer control. The next few weeks saw a rapid shift in the balance of power. The Dominion was no longer feared. They were weak. Their fleets had been shattered, their resources drained, and their leadership in disarray. The Alliance had won a crucial battle, but the war was far from over. If they were to break the Dominion's hold on the galaxy, they would have to fight on multiple fronts. The Alliance began to regroup. Earth's leaders, along with the Jakarn, Zarnix, and Eliari, established a new command center on Mars, away from the prying eyes of the Dominion. The plan was simple: strike fast, strike hard, and liberate as many planets as possible before the Dominion could recover. They knew that with each victory the resistance would grow stronger, and their chances of ultimate victory would increase. Lena West, now a symbol of the galaxy's resistance, was deeply focused. She had seen the price of war, and though victory was within reach, she knew that their fight was not just for survival, it was for the future of every species under the Dominion's boot. "We've given the galaxy hope," Lena said, speaking to her commanders. "But it's not enough. We have to free the people. We have to break their chains." Her words echoed in the hearts of the commanders in the room. The time had come for the final phase of their plan, liberating the oppressed worlds still trapped in the Dominion's grasp. Meanwhile, far away from Earth, in a star system once considered lost to the Dominion, a new alliance of rebel forces began to form. The Free Systems Coalition, made up of planets that had long suffered under the Dominion's reign, now stood united under the banner of freedom. No longer would they be pawns in the Dominion's endless wars. One such planet was Varan, a world that had once been a thriving center of trade, but had fallen under Dominion control centuries ago. Varan's people had been forced to serve in the Dominion's military, their rich resources drained to fuel the Empire's endless war efforts. But now, after years of suffering, they were rising. Led by General Aris, a former Dominion soldier who had defected, the people of Varan had joined the rebellion, and their ships now flew alongside humanity's fighters in the war for freedom. Aris looked out over his war-torn planet. He had fought for the Dominion once, but after seeing the cruelty they had inflicted on his people, he knew he could never go back. Varan, like so many other worlds, was now part of the fight against the Dominion's iron grip. They were all fighting for the same thing: freedom. "I never thought this day would come," Aris said, speaking to his closest allies in the Rebel Command Center. "The Dominion is weakening. We've been waiting for this moment, and now it's our turn to make the galaxy feel our strength." With the combined forces of humanity, the Elyari, the Jakarn, the Zarniks, and the Free Systems Coalition, the rebellion launched wave after wave of attacks on Dominion-controlled planets. They hit supply lines, destroyed key military targets, and liberated entire worlds. The Dominion was stretched thin trying to fight on multiple fronts, and every victory brought new hope to the oppressed people across the galaxy. Then came the decisive moment: the battle for Raxion Prime. Raxion Prime was the heart of the Dominion, the capital planet where the ruling council resided. It was the symbol of the Dominion's power and the seat of its leadership. If the Alliance could take Raxion Prime, they could break the Dominion's command structure and bring an end to the war. The plan was risky. Raxion Prime was heavily defended by the most powerful fleet the Dominion could muster. It would take everything the Alliance had to breach the planet's defenses and fight their way to the capital city, where the Dominion's leaders were waiting. The battle began with a full-scale assault. The Alliance forces launched a coordinated strike, overwhelming the Dominion's outer defenses with a combination of space attacks, ground troops, and covert sabotage. As the fight raged on, Rylus, leading Earth's flagship, called for reinforcements. The Dominion's ships began to fall one by one, but their defenses were tough, and the battle was brutal. As the Alliance pushed forward, Lena West knew the battle was more than just a military campaign. It was a battle for the soul of the galaxy. The people of the galaxy were watching. If they could take Raxion Prime, if they could defeat the Dominion on their home turf, it would be the final blow. Finally, after hours of intense fighting, the Alliance reached the Dominion's command center. Lena and her team led the charge, into the heart of the capital. They fought through the streets where the echoes of the war could be heard from every building, every corner. The Dominion's soldiers were fierce, but they were no match for the unity and determination of the Alliance. And then, it happened. Lena stood before the Dominion's ruling council, those who had long believed that their empire would never fall, those who had crushed entire species without a second thought. But now they were faced with something they had never anticipated: a united galaxy fighting for its freedom. The battle for Raxion Prime ended when Lena West, standing before the council, addressed them with a single powerful message. The galaxy no longer belongs to you. It belongs to all of us. With that, the last of the Dominion's power crumbled. The once feared empire had fallen, and the galaxy was free. The battle had been long, and many had sacrificed everything, but in the end, the rebellion had succeeded. The people of the galaxy, led by humanity's bravery, had shown that no matter how powerful an empire was, no force in the universe could stand against the will of a united people. As the dust settled, Lena stood on the ruins of the Dominion's capital looking out at the stars. The war was over, but the real work had just begun. It was time to rebuild. It was time to build a galaxy of peace, freedom, and unity, where no one would ever live in fear again.